at what is going on, and we have another random rant now. Find somebody who knows somebody, tell somebody about what we got going on over here. Like it, let me know. Share it if you do. Subscribe, what you looking for. Hold up for a second. Oh, got a phone call. Like I said, for a while, that's normal. All right, so go ahead with the background now to this. So, as I said before, you might see some more of these random rants that come up just because of what is going on around us nowadays. And it is fast paced, so I find myself wanting to schedule a show, but by the time I get it scheduled, something else is coming. So if I have to, I'll throw some of these out here and there, right? So work with me, folks. Tonight's random rant, why I'm an atheist. And I am so glad that I am, because otherwise I'd probably be miserable or spending all my money right about now paying for past new cabinet. Just a second while I turn off these alarms. FYI, yes, my father's a preacher. I'm pretty sure he heard that, but not somebody not tell. So if any of my brothers are watching, you better not tell. Hey, Alicia. Alicia was getting ready to lay down and said, hey, girl, I'm about to do a rant. Want to ride, watch the clouds? Actually, she chose to watch the clouds. I don't catch her before 8 o'clock or so, and she's already laid up. All right, keep that to a minute. So as always, you guys know the format. If nobody shows up, we look for the replay game to get involved because there's still so many watch hours that have to be completed. So right now, out of 3,000 watch hours, I am at 364. So we know it's going to be a while. But that also being known, I don't worry too much about copyright strikes because I'm not making any money from it. She can't hang. All right, public service announcement. I think I need to start doing this more often. Folks, it's time to get woke. When our knowledge expands, inspiration soon follows. We are looking at a crisis right now in America, speaking specifically to the Black community right now, where our very existence is being erased, or at least the attempt is trying to be made to erase us. But I don't think that's going to happen only because there's too much history that people are aware of. But if we don't take the time to get to the younger generation behind us, I'm talking to Generation X right now. If we don't take the time to get to the generation behind us, we're not going to have anyone to fight to make sure that we are remembered. Keep that in mind. It's not a brutal reality just yet, but the action to erase history as we know it is underway. Keep that in mind. Matter of fact, let me make sure everybody remembers. All right, so let's go ahead and get this party started. So again, I will say that I am a proud atheist. Why? Because I am not bothered by what does not exist. Now, I know that's going to be an issue with people who have known me forever and never heard me say this out loud or perhaps it out loud. They may act as if I never did sin. I've got aunts, uncles, and my parents read their Bibles daily. Me, if I happen to walk in while they're doing it, many having their fellowship session or get together, whatever you want to call it, I'll go ahead and excuse myself, because the last thing I want to do is make my sentiments known. Not that I have to, but still, if I'm asked a question, I'm going to be honest and tell the truth about how I feel and how I see it. It literally does not exist, because had it been in existence, I'll just say this right now, the rapture that everybody's waiting about, it would have already occurred, right? Well, guess what? Even though it's not real, but for those who read the Bible and believe in that, it actually did happen 2,000 years ago. I think what I may end up having to do here is take one kick to show and just cover the resurrection. Just break it all out for people to see and have them read it with their own eyes from their own Bible. As I've said before, I am not a Bible company. This is not Sunday school. This is not vacation Bible school. This is not Bible study on Wednesday night. I only deal with historical accuracy of facts as they are presented. That's it. I'm a fact checker. I'm not here to argue anyone's faith. So therefore, I'm not going to go back and forth with what you believe versus what is known. Faith is the belief in the non-existent. That's pretty much all that needs to be said about it. And belief in and of itself is centered around 5 or 6 things. But anyway, so belief, or should I say the lack of belief, is centered on critical thinking, common sense, lack of comprehension, or let me rephrase that just in case people are going to get this wrong. Belief is centered around the lack of common sense, comprehension, critical thinking, facts, evidence, and records. That is what is missing from belief. And generally speaking, when you tell that to someone who is a believer, the first thing they say is, "Oh, that's the problem." See, you have to be in your faith. You have to truly believe. Like, no, that is where the problem exists. I am not going to wish something into existence, although people like to talk about manifesting, but still, there's nothing. Let me put it like this. The whole reason why faith was pushed is because you can't do anything with the masses if they have the same knowledge as you. And that's what you have to look at when you're talking about the priests or the clergy who had control of everyone based upon the fears of the unknown that was put into it. You can't have a population that is as smart as the folks putting out the information, right? You can't have it. A better way to put this is that it's no fun if the rapper has a full clip also. So, as I said here, I'm an atheist and I have no issue. I have no fears, reservations. I do what I do because that's how I get things done. I realize one thing that is going to make a difference, whether or not I eat, whether or not I achieve, or whether or not there is life, love, happiness. It's going to be based upon my actions. Now, here's the crazy thing about this: when you ask people about what they feel, or what they know to be true, if you talk to the average Christian or a believer, everything is on my faith in God. As I've said before, I have no beliefs of it. I don't believe in things. I know. I acknowledge. I recognize. That's how I go about life. I don't believe in things because, as I said before, belief is lacking in common sense, comprehension, critical thinking, facts, evidence, and records. Something to record what's gone on. Without those things, you cannot have anything that can be verified. Otherwise, you're just left to religious speculation. So I'm not saying that to be hard on folks. I'm just giving my perspective of it. Now, understand at the same time, I'm not going to sit here and try and have a knockdown, drag out fight with someone about the faith because, oh, I believe, I have the faith because I have been drenched in the blood of Jesus. From my side of the equation, it's simple as this: Jesus never existed. Nothing, no one in the Bible ever existed when you start giving concrete elements of reality and facts. But there's always going to be some way to say, well, actually, if you look at it from this perspective, you always have to see someone build nuance in order to be right. I tell people, facts don't choose sides. Reality does not choose sides. Although people will try to bend facts and reality to fit a narrative. You won't see that from me. So when you hear me make statements throughout any of the times that you have kept in my lives, whether they're random rants like this from a schedule, you'll see that I'm a pretty even-keeled dude. I don't shift lanes too much on what I'm coming off. Although I do reserve the right to be wrong, when I get up in front of this camera and start speaking to you guys, I'm not going to tell you something I can't prove. And if there's something that I have mistaken, or if I have been mistaken based on something I've read or told, I will go back and I will verify and I will make corrections needed. But understand something, I tell you this: there's nothing to fear by having no faith, because many a person has survived, believe it or not, without believing in the biblical character of Jesus. I'm one of them. So one of the things I also have to say about belief is that when you have a conversation with someone who does believe that Jesus existed, it gets to be a free for all, especially if they've been indoctrinated since childhood. Now, when you're talking to someone who has been riding with Jesus since they opened their eyes, that is someone that, unless they have a hardcore, we call it SEE in sociology or psychology, a significant emotional event, they can't be told different. This goes back to shows that I've done, a couple of shows that I've done, talking about how it was an action of Russia to undermine American ideology. And there were 4 stages to that. I may have to do another repeat of that show just so people get an idea of where I'm coming from when we talk about the undermining of ideology. Because believe it or not, before the Russians even attempted to undermine American ideology, even before the daughters of the Confederacy attempted to undermine ideology with the lost cause narrative of them re-representing the loss of the South in the Civil War, or making it seem as if it was a charming, a beautiful, a love affair of the South that was never recognized because of the bullying of the North. You already had an incursion of the ideology of a nation. Multiple nations in this hemisphere and the other hemispheres. And that is religion. Indoctrination had taken place over 2,000 some years ago, or even further back. That has made the world what it is. I won't say that's made America what America is, but ideally what's made the world what it is. And that has been indoctrination. Other people get locked up if they're caught talking to voices, having conversations with themselves. But if you say, oh, I was praying or I was talking to Jesus, something like that, oh, okay, people walk away. I remember when I was a kid, when it would thunder, my grandparents would say, that's just God who's upset right now. He's angry. Y'all children go sit down or something. And even when our grandparents went around and there was a thunderstorm, my brother or my cousin would say, oh, God's angry. You better sit down. we would actually sit down and try not to move a lot until the thunderstorm ended. Because in our mind, thunderstorm ended, that means that God is no longer angry. It's amazing what children will think, right? But we have that put into us. There's also this thing of God is always watching. I'm sure everyone can think about that picture of Jesus that's either hanging in the hallway or somewhere in the kitchen, maybe even in the living room. And it was going to be one of two. It was either going to be himself, where he's just sitting somewhere like his hands are out, or it would be that cross. Y'all know what I'm talking about, right? One cross that's always in the house somewhere. I don't care what your culture is, white, black, Hispanic. If you believe in Jesus, or if you had parents, grandparents who were believers, that cross, Jesus crucified, it was somewhere in your house. I remember the first time we're talking about just these beliefs that we have. Santa Claus, for example. We're always told about some overweight white guy wearing a red outfit coming down chimneys. Well, what if he didn't have a chimney? I mean, what's he going to do? Knock on the front door and walk in? Mom and dad are going to let him in the house? But for whatever reason, the presents were always there. So you knew Santa Claus was coming. Now I remember one Christmas. It had to be Christmas of 70, probably 74, maybe 75. I remember, let me back up for a second. In the dining room with Halo. Hey, it just came through, Elisa, so maybe there might be a 10, 15-second lag between live and seeing on YouTube. In the dining room with the Halo. But yeah, that's the one I was talking about. Well, initially, the dining room Halo. His hands were either like this, or if he was like this. It's going to be one of those. But as I was saying, I woke up and I saw my father and my uncle bringing presents from the house. This is back when the whole family would come over and sleep in the same house. You got your uncle, you got the grandparents, and then you have other families and friends that come by in the afternoon for dinner. So I recall watching them bringing my cousin's bicycle, and then I saw my father bring various toys for my twin brother and I. And I remember saying something. I said, "Hey, wait, is Santa Claus not going to do this?" I think I was about 5 years old, 4 or 5, somewhere in there, maybe 6. But nonetheless, he said, "Go back to bed. Santa will be here in a minute. We're just giving him a hand." I went back to sleep. Now, as I got older, I recall the older kids like saying, "Santa Claus is real. That's your mom and your dad." And being children, nothing that you would hate worse than someone trying to tell you that your belief is not real. The Easter Bunny, the Tooth Fairy, all of this stuff that you were told growing up. Hell, I think even one time I caught my dad taking my tooth. I think I asked, "Dad, why are you taking my tooth?" I can't recall if he said, "I was just checking to see if it was still there." But I remember that we would actually get, I think, quarters. That's what we would get. We would get a quarter or something like that if we put our tooth on the pillow. I haven't thought about this in almost 40 some odd years. But yes, I caught my father stealing my tooth that I put under my pillow for the tooth fairy. Needless to say, when I woke up in the morning, I think I still had a quarter. But the belief is always going to be there. So, what is it about children that makes us believe? Well, before we actually get to that point where indoctrination takes over, about the time that we start crawling and then walking, and then able to move about for ourselves, the child psychologist, French, Jean Piaget, he was known for his studies in child development. One of the principles that he discussed was tertiary control. And what tertiary control consists of is a child having or coming to realization that they have an effect on the environment that they are in. Now think about this. How often have you seen, if you can recall, because most of us may or may not remember certain instances being children and doing this, but pretty sure we did. Yeah, we do it as adults. How often have you seen where a child might be sitting in a high chair, or they just be sitting on a sofa? It's talking about a child who has now got the ability to somewhat move and control their limbs. Whereas if they're in a high chair, they may have something in their hand like a spoon, and they'll throw the spoon to the ground. Of course, Algernon, don't do that. I don't know why I said Algernon. It's the first name that came to my mind. So anyway, Algernon throws the spoon on the ground. So what does the parent do? Gets up, takes it back to Algernon, puts it back on the high chair table. Algernon sees this, picks it up, and then throws it to the other side of the kitchen. There it gets back up. Oh, Algernon. Walks over, picks the spoon back up, puts it back on the table. So this may happen 2 or 3 more times until the parent either takes the spoon away from Algernon or takes Algernon out of the high chair and puts him someplace else. But at that moment, that's when the child is realizing that I can make the parent do something. Now, sure, they're not going to be scrupulous about it. I'm going to make you stop eating your eggs and drinking coffee and go pick my spoon up from the far side of the room next to the kitty litter box. No, the kid is not thinking. Not on his mind. But it's knowing that if I do this, somebody will come. But when has this action already been tested? And unbeknownst to the child. When the baby cries. At a certain point in time, the child figures out that if I cry, somebody will come. Again, it's not an unscrupulous act. The child is just doing what is normal. He or she is crying, and somebody comes. That's an element of control that the child has. Now, when you look at that perspective, Piaget used to say that children are like explorers. Think about how you're always walking around the house opening cabinets, trying to get the lid off the bottles, getting smart across your backside. Because of the fact you were under the cabinet and you were messing with those cans like Lysol, Drano, Comet, and all this stuff that us Generation X kid had on the sinks. And your parents, get away from that. Put it down, then to make you wash your hands, go through some type of ritual because of the fact you were touching something that you weren't supposed to be messing with. And then, of course, how about those light signs? Now, I can't recall if I ever got a spoon or anything like that, maybe fork in my hand, try to plug it into the wall, but I'm pretty sure that had I done so, I wouldn't be here. So we'll just go with, no, I never tried to stick a fork inside of lights. But still, that's what children did. They explored. There was no concept about anybody watching, whether or not what you were doing was good or bad. It's just the basic action of a child or anything else. I don't want to say completely feral, but it's all about the id. I want. And that's what we do. I see something, I want to do something. And that's how we were as children. We were explorers. We were fearless. We had no fear of anything. Anything and everything we did was, oh, isn't that so cute? Oh, when did he learn how to do that? Oh, when did you start this? So we did more of whatever it was we were doing because it was another way that we learned to garner praise. We got praise if we did something that made our parents show their teeth. Or teeth, depending on where you're from. Right? I can remember one particular time when I was 3 or 4 years old, and I was out flying a kite with my mother and my father. This is one of the first houses that I can remember as a child. And I was holding onto the kite, and I remember my parents saying, don't throw the stick on the roof. Now, the stick had the string tied around it to control the kite. They put everything in their balance. Yes. Freud called that the oral stage. So I was told, do not throw the stick on the house. So as soon as my parents went in to do something, they asked me to stay in the yard, hold on, I'll be right back. I threw the stick on the roof. I to this day, I have no idea. I can remember the day like it was 5 minutes ago. I sat there, I looked at the stick, I looked at the roof, I looked over to see what my parents had gone to. They left, and I slung the stick on top of it. My dad came back outside and said, "Boy, where's the stick?" I said, "On the roof." And I remember him shaking his head, but he just left it at that, and we just went back in the house. I have no idea what happened to that kite. Just want to put that out. Do not know where that kite went. But the thing here was that I wanted to see what would happen if I threw the stick. Now, granted, I wasn't thinking that the kite was going to fly away. I wasn't thinking that I was going to get spanked or anything like that. I was just curious about what's going to happen if I do this. Again, because I'm exploring the environment. I have no restraints. Sure enough, you catch a belt across the backside. If you mess with knives, mess with scissors, that type of stuff. For the most part, it was pretty much, go do something. Okay, that's what I did. So I want to say maybe around the age of 2.5, maybe 3, that's when indoctrination starts. That's when you'll go to church one day and someone will see, now that you're able to have a conversation, say hello and speak back. Do you know who Jesus is? And you may be in Sunday school, you may be playing something. So you're over here minding your business. Here's Algernon just doing whatever he's doing. Do you know who Jesus is? No. So again, the adult tries to get Algernon's attention. Algernon, do you know that Jesus loves you? No. And then finally, the adult will take whatever toy that Algernon has, put it to the side, and say, Algernon. And it's going to be in a much more stern voice. Not really scary, but enough to get the child's attention. Do you realize that Jesus died? And that's where it starts. That's where the sense of exploration starts to go down, because now you're being told that there's somebody who's watching you, and that somebody is not going to be pleased unless you do this list of things that they expect of you to stay in their good graces. 2.5 and 3, I think that's pretty much the age where you might see that start. Well, let me take out mine. Let me not see mine. That's where you will see it start. As soon as the child is able to show some level of cognizance to where they can have a conversation with you, remember a few things. Now you got to, of course, work around it. Did you do that? No. Was that you? Not me. You remember that game? Well, if you had a twin brother, you do that. That's what I did. No, not me. The point at that time. But still, indoctrination will start early. So what's the first thing that starts indoctrination? Well, he always sees you. So now you're cutting your eyes everywhere, trying to figure out. And again, let's go back to that picture of Jesus with the halo. So now you're walking around, you're standing in front of it. Just moving around, you're trying to see if the eyes are moving. And then you swear to your friend, I swear I saw the eyes move. Your parents look at you like you're silly, and they go on with their day. But you're actually trying to see, is he really looking at me? Now, of course, then what's the next thing you told me? Oh, Jesus, my God, it's everywhere. So now you got to look over your shoulder and wonder, really? But keep in mind now, this is also about the time you learn of the boogeyman. and your parents are telling you that, oh, bad children get taken by the boogie. And I can remember there are times, oh, wait, the man on the wall. Oh, shit, I haven't thought about this in ages. The man on the wall. That was another thing that you saw as a child. Again, things that did not exist. But you believed that it did because of being told. Now, although you may not have been given a picture, like, yeah, man on the wall is about maybe 5'6", about maybe 160 pounds. You don't get descriptions like that. But I recall one time I thought I saw a man on the wall, and it was bright white. I couldn't have been maybe more 4, maybe 5 years old. I remember seeing this dude on the wall glowing. And I'm yelling, Mom! Dad! I'm screaming. And they come running in the room. What? Said there was a man on the wall. Now, of course, your parents know there was nobody there. But what are you telling us as kids? You're telling us things, our minds are forming pictures, and then we're actually seeing. Call it psychosomatic, where it starts in the mind and then the body will reproduce it. What's the next thing they do? Oh, they start teaching you prayers. So you get down on bed, let's say next to bed at night, and you go into whatever little kitty prayer they teach. I lay me down to sleep, I pray my soul, pray Lord, my soul, deep. If I die before I wake, you just go into it. And then as years or year or so goes by, or depending upon how well the child is, then you will learn the Lord's Prayer. I remember my mother having both my brother and I in our beds. We were twins, so we had twin beds. I don't think it was bunk beds. We might have had separate beds next to each other. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, the kingdom come, before we done, on earth as in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, hold it. I can remember her reciting it line by line and having us repeat it back until we were able to do it on our own. So there was the indoctrination coming in. Granted, we weren't 4 or 5 when we first learned the Lord's Prayer. I want to say we had to be at least maybe 7, possibly 8. And then from there, remember, Easter comes up and you have to do a poem. You got to get dressed up and then go in front of the assembly and say whatever poem that's been picked out for you that you had to rehearse for about a week or so before the actual Easter program. Yeah, there was that as well. Yeah, notice how this slow indoctrination is coming. And as you're going through this, that age of exploration starts to dissipate. That age of exploration starts to dissipate, and now you're becoming more and more formalized, whereas you're getting your guidance from not just your parents, but from this mystical guy that you can't even see, but you're told he sees everything. And if you're bad, you're going to go to a bad place. And I can't recall how old I was when I started getting the concept of supposed heaven and hell. But I remember having a children's Bible. And of course, for children, they have pictures. And to this day, I never read through that thing from cover to cover. Just pick sections in it and I read just whatever interests me. I think I may have got halfway through it by the time I was 14. I think I still had that book around, but it was not really one of my primary reading sources. But you're always still going to hear it when you go to church. Remember being forced to go to church on Sunday. Never fails. Sunday morning, then you're going to sleep in. All right, guys, get up. You got to go to church. Every so often, you did not have to. And those were the cool Sundays where you sit in and, as a kid, if you didn't go to church on Sunday, well, again, me, Generation X, we watched Space Ghost, Herculoids, Johnny Quest, Hanna-Barbera. This was typical Sunday morning shows that you watched if you didn't go to church. And then, of course, if it was football season, yeah. But nonetheless, the indoctrination slowly moves from learning the children's prayer You get your first children's Bible. You go through Easter poems. There's also Sunday school. You gotta go first for that. It's Sunday school before actual service starts. And then it just goes on from there. Vacation Bible school. Church visits to other churches. The indoctrination just never seems to stop. It starts getting full tilt. And by the time you're a teenager, you are caught up in it. When I look back at this time period, I think that's mostly where I can remember my cousins or other kids ask the question, hey, do you believe in God? And the answer that you always gave was yes. Because if you didn't believe, you think, ooh, and you're made to feel as if there's something that you have done wrong. So if it wasn't the adults giving you grief about where your belief, where your faith was, it was going to be the kids, because we also as children did not want to be the ones on the outside and ostracized for not believing in an entity that really did not exist. But you don't know at a certain age. You do not know. You take it for granted because parents know everything. So your parents are going to tell you the same thing that their parents told them. And whatever their parents were told by their parents, it gets passed down. I remember I was probably about at 21 or 22. This had to be early 90s when I joined the Air Force. And I had come home on leave. I think my grandfather had passed away. I think he'd been gone like 3 or 4 years. So my grandmother had a house she was living in by herself. She started dating again. Wanted to go there. But nonetheless, I remember one particular time when the phone rang, and my mom and dad happened to be in town this one time. So we all came there as a group. I think my brother had shown up also. So I'm at the house, sitting up front. It's a Saturday morning, maybe about 10:30, and the phone rings. So for whatever reason, as a 22-year-old, you think you're a real adult. So you don't knock on doors anymore. You just open the door and just walk in, right? So the phone rang, and it's mom and dad. So I said, okay, I'll get it. So I open the door, I walk in. And my parents were having relations. I tell you, if God really existed, would he allow some shit like that to happen? It's like still I need to get still water, clean out my mind's eye, right? But nonetheless, all jokes aside, yeah, it was my fault. I really should have not. But I thought I was a grown person at 22. I really did. Oh, the cruelty. But nonetheless, I remember a few years before I joined the military, I had a girlfriend, and we were messing around on lunchtime one day. We were supposed to be in class. We drove off to a hotel, and the rubber came off. Oh, yeah. Yes, ma'am. Trauma. Ugh, the heebie-jeebies. Arm off. That's but as I was saying, my girlfriend and I were messing around. The condom came off. Sploosh. All right. And I remember her saying, "Oh, it's okay. It'll be all right. It'll be all right." She grabs my hands. She butt naked, right? So both of us are. She gets down on her knees and pulls me down with it. Oh, all right, brother. Go ahead, and she starts praying. So I just happen to remember the Lord's Prayer. So I throw a little bit, hey, Father, look, man, it was a direct hit. I'm not saying, you get us out of this. I promise that you know how you do that. Wow, I promise that I'll never do such and such to you. You just start saying stuff. Just anything that's going to help you feel like can something be done about this. Can you fix this? Oh, hmm. So nonetheless, yes, she did get pregnant. However, as I mentioned folks before, she had a miscarriage. From what she was telling me, I was away when the miscarriage happened. But it was a boy. So that was my one and only chance of being a parent at the age of 19, maybe 20. This is before I joined the military. So yeah, my life would have been completely different. I probably would not be sitting here right now had my son actually been born. I would have had to do what most kids did back then to got them pregnant. You ended up marrying her and do the right thing and you join the army and then you guys just go away somewhere and then you see what you can do about making life. Because of the fact that did not happen, I had an opportunity to do something different. Now, granted, she and I stayed friends. Also, by the time I met her, she'd already had a child with somebody else prior to us getting together. I think we met when I was 19 and she was 19, getting ready to turn 20. We were going to junior college at the same time. She was living at home with parents with her daughter from her previous relationship. Nonetheless, I can remember just all the wild prayer homes. You could just get me out of this, life can't be over. I've got things I want to do. What can you do for me? That was my concept of prayer, my concept of reaching out some. So I got lucky on that. Now it sounds terrible when I say lucky because my son was a miscarriage, but I knew that go back and still have the possibility for life. Now at 19 or 20, you're not really thinking about kids. So if things don't come to fruition in that particular sense, you don't lose sleep over. You're like, dodge the bullet. So yes, that's how I took it. It's I dodged the bullet at that point. So life continued on. So when I actually tried formal religion, such as showing up at church and carrying the Bible around and whatnot, I think I had to be about 24 years old. And at 24 years old, I really fell into it deep. I had a girlfriend that I was dating at the time. I told her one day, I just gave myself to Jesus Christ. She's like, what? Now, unbeknownst to me, she had a boyfriend prior to me who got saved on her watch. And she said it was just messy. She said, I don't know if this stuff works. So just give it a chance. Let's see what we can do. And one of the things that we stopped doing, which we did a lot of, was sex. Now, she lived about an hour away from me. So when my car was working, I'd drive down to see her. What she would do is every other weekend, she'd drive up to see me. Now she's driving up there just laying in bed like her brother or sister or whatnot. Maybe cut a little bit spoon, but I wouldn't give her goods. And then on top of this, I had these cats from the church that I joined over there who would come by my room over Johnson. Just come by and make sure you keep the faith. As I said before, there was a lot of stuff that you do when you're not concerned about Gabriel's horn going off. There'll be 7 sounds, 7 trumpets that you hear. And then you'll see Gabriel come from the sky, all this type of stuff they put in your head to wear you down, to instill some type of fear in you. Think about it. When you're sitting in the pews and you're looking forward and you think to yourself, this asshole, I'm grown, this asshole is trying to tell me about something that he had never experienced. Now, if you're not in the faith, you think this guy's a jerk off. But if you are within the faith, you think, speak on the pastor, wow, all the noise, you see people off to the side, catch the Holy Ghost, and start doing the running man and all this type of stuff. It's theatrics, the whole deal. But that's what it is in the Black church. But as I'm sitting here watching these guys, one of them was a deacon that was also a senior NCO in the squadron that I happened to be in. Now I'm watching this guy. This at times when I walk down the hallways. Oh, hey, Brother Johnson, how you doing? I'm fine, Brother Champus. I'm watching him doing dirt. He's doing shit. People are coming in to be counseled. He's got a tape recorder. So he can use that against them later. If anything goes down, I got my tape. I'm watching everything I hear him preach, and I'm seeing actually not just him, but I'm just thinking of him in this particular instance. That's the only person coming to mind. I'm watching the things that he's doing. I'm thinking that's not. Manipulation, jockeying for positions, trying to get people that he knows into the back office, what they call it. I work for the security police force. He will say, he, as I said, is not the only person. But you have all folks doing things who supposedly were Christ. And I'm not seeing anything in them that resembles them. I remember I woke up one day and I said, you know what? Enough of this shit. I'm tired of living scared. I'm tired of worrying about somebody flying out of the sky. I mean, really, I am 20-something years old, and I believe that some guy is going to fly down, I don't know, with a trombone or some shit, whatever type of form he's going, probably a Rams or something. Just descending and then grabbing people and disappearing and all this shit. Literally, that is what is on my mind, that I can't even enjoy myself. And to me, that was not living life, especially if I'm being told, well, this is just a moment. But what you want to do is work to where you are Christ-like in your actions. Do good always. Respect the 10 Commandments. So therefore, when you get to heaven, you can truly have the life you deserve. What about the life I want right now? That does not work. And being that I'm in my mid-20s, I'm in the prime of running, absolutely not. I finally let that go. And I got back to the life that I knew. But then, as soon as you leave, these same people who are on your side are now in your ass. With both feet and the body. Going around your room, Brother Johnson. We noticed that you weren't in service. Oh, yeah, you're right. So I tell my girlfriend, hold up. I'm getting ready to do some sliding, and these guys slide through my door, knocking on it and all this type of nonsense. So I have to go out and just look. It's been fun. I thought about it. I think I'm enjoying my life the way it is. And this whole Jesus thing, church, it's not for me. Of course, you're going to get there, but, what about your soul? What about it? I was fine without it before. I don't see any change happening with it now. Well, it's disappointing, Brother Johnson, you say this, but we'll keep praying for you. But what is this thing? We'll keep praying for you. Nowadays, if someone says, I'll pray for you, I say, okay, I'll roll some dice for you. Just about as arbitrary as, hey, let's meet for coffee. Basically, what I'm saying is, don't lose any sleep over it, because there's not going to be anything that happens. You piss somebody off, Hail Mary, full of grace, whatever these guys go to the priest, tell them what they've done wrong. No, don't go to the priest. Don't drop rosary beads or whatever. You go back to that person who offended and you clear it up with them. But oh no, you'll just have faith. As long as you drop down and pray, you're absolved of everything. And to me, that was the most foolish thing that I could think. So you telling me that I can go over here and actually complete acts. But as long as I don't say, oh, geez, I'm sorry, I won't do it again, I'm good. No, that seems rather just real basically saying that. Nonetheless, there is a lot of belief that a person can stock up to the point that I can be no wrong because I am drenched in the blood of Jesus. And I'm listening to this, I'm watching this, I'm like, what type of nonsense is this? I start to realize that, is this what I look like? I mean, you can't have a conversation with anyone who does not acknowledge the simple fact of reality. Now, I was going to save this for later, but let's go ahead and just do this real quick right now. There we go. So what I will generally do if I happen to bump into one of these folks online or just someplace, I will ask a question. Here's one of the first questions I'll ask. Outside of the Bible, for empirical evidence, and I'll ask it more or less in a question. Right now, it's just a statement, but I'll ask a question. Excuse me. Outside of the Bible, for empirical evidence, where is there recorded evidence of the Ark of the Covenant existing? Now, of course, people will start going through the scriptures, trying to find some way to justify a question that I'm asking them. Now, notice, this person, or if you've ever been around people like this, they cannot give you an answer without having to pick up the Bible and try and go to some area of scripture to justify a question that I've asked. It's not a hard question to ask, but if you've been taught to be the rabbit without the full clip, you will go based upon belief. What have I said before about belief? Belief is centered around the lack of critical thinking, common sense, comprehension, facts, evidence, and recorded records. So without those things, people will try to defend the Bible by using the Bible. Come on, folks. Put some heads in it. Oh yeah, Indiana Jones. By the way, in that scene where the dude his face started melting, scared the kid out of me for a couple of days watching Indiana Jones first. But anyway, as I said, when you ask this question and they can't give me an answer, what I like to do is to take the questions that I use and I will email it to them, or if I happen to be in the chat room, I will give them the exact verbiage. I tell them, put this in your chat and see what you find. So this is what we got. Yes, you are correct. Outside the biblical text, there is no credible, empirically verified, or scientifically accepted evidence for the existence of the Ark of the Covenant. Done. Right then and there. Now, I will say this. Information or misinformation is right on the internet nowadays. This is where a lot of recruiting for religious cults or hate groups, which we'll get into that in another session, because I'm getting ready to start touching down on some stuff, folks, because a lot of what we're seeing right now, especially in this administration, it wasn't just a thing of militant behavior. There was religious-based behavior on January 6th. To the point that I'm just going to call it what it is, Christian extremism. But if you are a believer and you believe that God is part of you and whatever you do, you are justified. So that's so good. So a lot of the activity that we're seeing today is backed by this piece of information, or not this piece of information, but we'll say this conclusion based upon religious text. I'm going to veer off here for a second. I'm going to go on a rant a rant about my rants. I can remember when Christians were bombing and setting fires. Oh yeah, in my time frame, you had Christians who were bombing abortion clinics with people inside them, setting fires with people inside them. Or if people weren't there, they would sometimes bomb the clinic at night when the people were gone, set fire to it, or hell, even both. But you don't hear that being discussed. You always hear, oh, Christians are so persecuted as well. No. I remember that you guys were the main persecutors. I want to grab some information and do a show here to back up what I'm talking about right now. Yeah, I will never tell you anything that I can. So I would say, yes, you have an issue nowadays, resurgence. I shouldn't even say resurgence, but now it's more or less out in the open. There is a problem with Christian nationalism that is fueling the upheaval that we're seeing today. But as I said before, this indoctrination started 2,000 some odd years ago. Hey, Lord, thanks for stopping by. I think Christianity had a hell aspect. A lot of times it's made up to scare bad people. It's not big such bad people. No, you got to think about it, because bad people aren't going to worry about Christianity, because if they're already bad, that means that they didn't care about Christianity or values in the first place. So it's a waste. It's sort of like saying, oh, don't waste that on this person. You're not going to get any return. If you got somebody who's already out here robbing, stabbing, extorting, and whatnot, religion is the least that's on their mind. It's the least thing they're going to be concerned with. The only thing that's going to make that person act right is they have a restriction of any freedom that they currently have. Because clearly, they're not concerned about whether or not God is watching. If anything, they'll ask, hey, God, you get a front row seat to this? So, no, religion is made up to scare bad people. Bad people don't care. So, therefore, they won't be worried about religion. So that's the perspective that I'll give them. But still, hey, thanks for showing up. By all means, if you have any questions, drop them down here. I'll answer as best as I can. If Alicia hadn't fallen asleep, maybe she might as well. All right, moving on. Here's another one that I asked. Outside of the Bible, for empirical evidence, there's no recorded evidence of Jesus walking on water. Now, again, I'll ask the question. Outside of the Bible, for empirical evidence, is there any recorded world history or evidence of Jesus walking on water? Now, of course, again, I put this in the statement. The answer, you are correct. There is no empirical evidence outside the Bible to support the claim that Jesus walked on water. The story of walking on water is recorded only within the New Testament Gospels, which are faith documents. Now, remember what I said about faith. Faith is the belief in the non-existent. Not historical records in the modern sense. Remember what, again, I've said about belief. Belief is centered around the lack of common sense, critical thinking, comprehension, facts, evidence, and recorded records. While some non-Christian sources corroborate that Jesus was a historical figure, they do not mention any miracles, let alone walking on water. Now, if anybody wants to test this for themselves, by all means, I'm giving you the thread that you put in here right now, and you can go ahead and read through this. Now, as I was saying before, there's a lot of misinformation that's out there. So the best way to cut through anything I've noticed, even though there's filtering going on, you have to make sure that this word right here, or this phrase, empirical evidence, you need to make sure that empirical evidence is a part of that search. Otherwise, what AI does now is a lot of waffle. Well, there is the statement of him not walking on water. However, there has been some corroboration. Oh, stop. Let's go ahead and get this over and done with. Ask it directly in a way that cannot waffle around the question, and you will get the direct answer. With the best you can get to. Then again, here's another question or statement. Now, this popped up a few weeks ago where there was a conversation about Nebuchadnezzar. I remember I was on somebody else's chat board. I want to say that it was called Archstink, something like that, Deconstructing Christianity. And she normally works from the platform TikTok. She's another believer who, after realizing that what she was reading was not adding up, math wasn't math, she is now a non-believer, and she spends her time trying to get other people woke to the realization that there's no Jesus with you. And of course, you still get the conversation where people say, oh, yes, if it weren't for Jesus, I wouldn't have woken up. No, if your heart had not been beaten, you wouldn't have woken up to it. Well, who do you think gives you life? My mom and my dad. I got life from them. Where did they get life from? Their mom and their dad. So they try so hard that once you say that an unknown, non-existing entity is responsible for the life of the. But that's how powerful indoctrination is. You never hear someone who's on a high, who's winning, say, "Oh yeah, I just won $50 million, and I just married the girl of my dreams, and we just bought a $4 million home with 15 bedrooms, whatnot, and a swimming pool. I think I'm going to go ahead and give my life to Jesus Christ." No, no, it never happens that way. Find me somebody who's done that. Yeah. Find me somebody who's done that. I'm not talking about this biblical nonsense. I'm talking about real world, empirical evidence type, recorded history. Find somebody who's been on top of the world and say, I wouldn't want to join this group. No, it's always the forlorn, the heartbroken, the devastated, the poor. Because again, let's focus on that for a second. Who else would look for a better life than somebody who has nothing to live for where they are right now? No, I know somebody that might be able to assist you, help you through these tough and troubling times. Have you ever heard of Jesus Christ? There's always that thing that gets amble in there, right? I know a guy who might be able to assist you. I know you have a hard time right now. When things get tough, I talk to him, and we have really good conversations. Remember what I said about any other time someone is talking to themselves or talking about an imaginary person, they get locked up. You tell them that you're talking to Jesus, all right, all good, all forgiven. All right, let me bring it back in. So the conversation popped up, whereas one of the moderators on ArtStaker's site started talking about Nebuchadnezzar. And I'm looking around like, Nebuchadnezzar was not real. Not a single person in the Bible is real. Yes, he was. Nebuchadnezzar was a real person. That's when you have to stop and realize what's been done. So we know that, let's say that you've got a skating rink here, and then all of a sudden somebody wants to write a story about skating rinks. So if I write about a guy named John, who happens to be a great skater, but nonetheless, and I write a book about this John guy, I'm going to say many things about John because he is exceptional. He's the greatest dancer. That's just a sledge. Might be before some of your times, but nonetheless, while John is out here skating, it's like he is riding on a cloud. At times, it looks as if he's lifting off the ground and he's skating, where it's just him going through the air. Now, obviously, we know that is hyperbole for the most part. But let's imagine that maybe there was somebody who was actually named Nebuchadnezzar. Because if you go out and type, was Nebuchadnezzar a real person? Yeah, oh yeah, Nebuchadnezzar was real. But that's what you get from the internet. From books, from written history that says that Nebuchadnezzar was real. But what puts a fork in it is this. Outside of the Bible, for empirical evidence, there is no recorded evidence of Nebuchadnezzar throwing 3 men into a furnace. Now, if you remember in the book of Daniel, it talks of Nebuchadnezzar condemning 3 men to death. Shadrach, Meshach, here it is right there. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These 3 guys are put to death for not worshiping this gold idol. Now, at the same time, I believe when these 3 men were thrown into the oven, there were soldiers who pushed them in who themselves perished because of the heat. Now, here's the thing. That oven was supposed to be, or furnace, was supposed to be burning 7 times hotter than a normal furnace. Now, think about this. Turn your oven up to 375 degrees. You're lighting up for briskets, right? Open that oven and stick your face in that joint with your eyes wide open and see how long you can hold it. You're not even going to be able to get close to that damn oven at 375, much less 400, or 7 times hotter than 300. 2,100 degrees, but I'm sure that furnace had to be at like maybe 500 or 600 times 7, so it's like 4,200 degrees or whatever. Do you really think anyone's going to survive it? No. Much less for brisket isn't going to do it. No, people aren't. But supposedly, when these 3 men were thrown into that oven or that furnace, they walked around and they survived because supposedly there was a fourth figure that Nebuchadnezzar saw running around in that easy bake oven with these three cats. So it's presumed that it was the biblical character Jesus that rescued, saved those men, supposedly. So I don't know what else came after that really speak much of it, other than saying that three men survived because of the fourth figure there, which is presumed to be biblical character Jesus, which they call this a divine intervention. But nonetheless, let's go ahead and read it out just like the other two. Your statement is correct. Outside of the biblical account in the book of Daniel, there is no empirical evidence. Empirical being a key word, as I said before, folks. There is no empirical evidence of Nebuchadnezzar throwing three men into a fiery furnace. The story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego is considered a narrative of faith rather than a historical event verifiable from non-biblical sources. But again, if you have this conversation with a true believer, oh, that's survived. That's survived. Their faith in Jesus Christ. These men survived because of their faith. What's the phrase, folks? Faith is the belief in the non-existent. Don't know what else to tell you, and true believers out here. But of course, since this is not the Bible, it's a lie. That's another thing. This book right here. I tell folks, I don't keep a Bible because I'm a believer. Absolutely not. I keep a Bible just so I can show people contradictions and how they misread things and therefore misconstrue it. Even if you have them read it in their own book, they will still argue. There's always going to be some type of equivocal statement, some deflective conversation. You are not going to be a true believer off of their rock. And I don't try to. I don't go back and forth. I'll simply make my case. I will give them evidence. If not something written, I will ask these same questions that I'm asking right now. And if I need to, I'll go one step further, which is what we're doing right now. I will put it into a search engine just to back it up. Let's do one more before we get back to this. Outside of the Bible, for empirical evidence, there is no recorded evidence or written world history of Jesus rising from death. Well, that one right there sets people off, I'm here to tell you. There are no known contemporary non-biblical empirical accounts of Jesus' resurrection from death. Therefore, the historics of the event is a matter of faith, not historical or scientific proof. Now, of course, you have folks trying to bring Josephus, Tacitus, and there was a third guy here with this. But nonetheless, they will always say, well, wait a minute, Josephus and Tacitus wrote about Jesus. Yes, they wrote about people's belief. They did not write and say that he existed. It's always this statement about the character called Jesus that's from a distance. Oh, yes, Jesus went so and so. Oh, yes, it's heard of Jesus. He spoke, but never, hey, I spoke with Jesus and got this. You don't have any of that first person account. So when you make a statement like that, oh, well, records weren't really kept well. Really? So we're talking about after 32, 33 AD, where Jesus, if he had existed, supposedly died. But yet, we can go back to 332 BCE, where we have the exploits of Alexander the Great invading Egypt. We go further back, we have information that is kept on hunter-gatherer societies that are living by the Nile, back when it was more plentiful and food, centuries ago. What, 2,000 years ago, from this point right now, and then about another 6,000 years ago, perhaps. But nonetheless, you hear stories about what the Nile used to be, and there were people who lived around it, the gatherers. There were scientists. There were physicians. Right? There was culinary experts. There was education. All this, 8,000 BCE and further back. We've got history about that, but for whatever reason, on this side of it, AD, None of the miracles that Jesus performed can be found as recorded fact in the areas he supposedly did them in. And it said the same thing. It's all a matter of faith, and it's only in the pages of the Bible that these things exist. Therefore, you have people who think the Bible is recorded world history. Again, what we're doing right now, this is not Sunday school, this is not Bible study. This is not a Sunday sermon. This is me, as I always do, dealing with facts. I'm one for historical accuracy. I'm not trying to sway anyone either here or there. I'm just giving you what's being presented that is known. So let me ask this question, or give you the same thing that's up here right now. Let me put it in question format. Outside of the Bible, per empirical evidence, where is there recorded world history of Jesus walking on water? Now, if you hear that question asked, it's either a yes or no. Now, I went to someone's platform one night. I want to say it was the Raging Tomato with Sarah. She's one of the folks that Fatty hangs out with occasionally, or even invites on his platform. I asked this question from the chat because there are two guys up there having a debate about religion and Jesus. One of the guys had the audacity and said, well, you know what? I walked across a frozen lake, so I disproved you because I walked on water. Holy shit. Again, if you cannot disprove what's being stated, then you will try and disavow anything about the topic. This guy really said that he walked on water because he walked across a frozen lake. Now, technically, you can get away with that and say, yes, you did walk on water. Well, here's the problem. Jesus didn't walk across a frozen lake. That froze down. But of course, he still swore that I disproved you. I walked on water. So you have to look at the context when you have conversations with these zealots. There's always going to be an angle that they're trying to play to ensure that they don't lose. It's not about being right, folks. It's about being accurate. So one more thing I want to go to. No. You get my point. Excuse me. So basically, I got to a point here, getting back on track, I was talking about how I decided that this religion thing was not working for me. I was missing sex with my girlfriend. Hey, young guns, right? Boom, pew, pew, pew. Anyway, when I got to that point, I started seeing this nonsense, realized that you don't have to go to church to see hypocrites or manipulation, anything like that. You can find them on the outside as well. That's when that 3-year-old explorer came back. Now, for those of you who are watching this, hopefully you stuck with it. If not, I'll make sure to timestamp this. At the very beginning of this video, I talked about how when you are at the age of 2 or 3, when you're finally able to get around, walk, hold your head up straight, so you're not doing this mess, falling over and hitting shit, or whatnot, you're able to get up and walk around. You start exploring. You don't have any concept of right or wrong if anyone is watching. You're just going through the motions. You are living your life, not really understanding what you're doing, but you just know that you can. Again, I also talked about tertiary control, where the child is sitting inside of his high chair and throwing the spoon off the high chair onto the ground. The parent gets up, grabs it, brings it back to the algebra. Algebra picks it up, flings it in another direction. Throw that type of laugh, kids. And then parent walks off, grabs it, brings it back, woo! Puts it in the air again. All right, that's tertiary control. The child has learned that it has an effect on the environment that it is around. So at this age of 25, 24, 25, I realized that, wait a minute, I have an effect on my life. There's nobody that I should be looking out for, that I need to be asking forgiveness from, that I need to be looking make movements in my life for me. No, that's going to come from me. And this was where I had the concept of, I call it CPD, chance, probability, and the sphere of influence. These are the only three things, or at least the perspective I have. These are the three things that are consistent in everyone's life. No one should ever think that their life does not affect anyone else around them. Because if you think that, then you're dead and you don't even know it. There's nothing that anyone does that is not going to affect anyone in the immediate environment or someone who will interact with you and then take whatever interaction they have with you someplace else. You will affect someone positively or negatively. If you really mean nothing to anyone, then no, you will have no effect because they will have no dealings with you. But if there's someone that you know as a friend, pal, buddy, romantic interest, family member, trust me, there will be some type of effect you will have. So the first thing is chance. Chance is just a 1 in a million shot for something that may happen. There's a chance that my child may play professional basketball because he was, or let's say he's taller than most of his kids his age. At 10 years old, he's 5'8". Okay, so you get him to play basketball. He got a good little jump shot. Good with his layups. Decent free throw shooter. Right, so no, there's a chance this could be something. All right, so we go from 10 years old to we'll say 16 years old. The kid is 6'7". He's scoring 28 points a game. He's been varsity since he got in high school, and he's been picked up for a full ride to Kentucky. Sorry, that's all that came to mind because when I was 17 and 18 years old, I was a big Kentucky fan because Eddie Sutton was the coach and Rex Chapman and a few other guys were going to school. Then again, I think Denny Crum had also else was that? No, I can't remember. You know what? We won't worry about that part. But again, I'm just thinking Kentucky because that's the only team that comes to mind. But nonetheless, what I'm saying here is that it went from this kid having a chance of playing professional basketball to where he's 5'7" and he's 10 years old. We go to probability, whereas there's a probability he might make it into the pros because he's 6'7", All-American, 20-some-odd points a game, full ride into college. All right, to where let's say that this dude stays for all 4 years and he gets drafted into the NBA. And if he gets drafted into the NBA, it's now down to a sphere of influence. So that sphere of influence comes into play to whereas people have seen this young man playing in college. Maybe a few of them remember watching him play when he was in grade school. But nonetheless, they watched him come up, and because of his play, he is now a professional basketball. But again, it's not a thing of where the kid is just sitting down and so I want to be a pro ball player, but he never does anything to enhance opportunities. A growth spurt never hurts out, but again, chance is where it all starts. 10 years old, 5'7", father teaches him how to play basketball, gets him playing a couple of youth sports here and there. He's got a good jump shot, good layups, gets his free throws. All right, cool. Probability comes to him going to college and probably getting drafted because of him now. Let's go to high school scenario. Again, it's just me making this up. We go to the high school scenario where the kid is now 6'7", after 20 points a game, killing him. Gets drafted, full ride to Kentucky, where he plays. Let's go ahead and throw this in. Let's say that he wins out of his 4 years, they win 2 NCAA championships. All right, so there is the probability that's sitting high that this kid may get drafted into the NBA. Draft night comes, boom, and he's taking number 1 in the draft. A sphere of influence. His play has convinced Seattle Supersonics. Couldn't think of anything else. But nonetheless, his play has convinced the Seattle Supersonics that yes, this guy can lead us to an NBA championship. So he gets chosen. Now, none of that had to do with a man in the sky. A lot of that had to do with what this kid was able to do to develop his skill. And again, like I said, growth spurt doesn't hurt. But that's the basic way to look at chance, probability, and influence, or sphere of influence. And that's something that is in action in everybody's life. Every day. You don't have to sit here and believe, I just want to make a lot of money. I just want to have a good life. I just want to do the best. I want to be the best. No, nothing fails like prayer. But nothing delivers results better than action. You can sit in the house all day and wish peace, but unless you walk out your front door, nothing's going to happen. That's mental. There's got to be work that's involved. So, what are some other concepts here? I think I mentioned, I forgot to say. Oh, Noah's Ark. That's always a good one to have a conversation about, because you ask people, so let me get this straight. You've got carnivores, lions, tigers, and bears, oh shit, oh my, whatnot. You got these folks here. Then you got antelope. You got your gazelles. Maybe a llama, a couple of llamas, something like this. You really believe that these meat-eating animals are not going to attack the herbivores or the omnivores. Oh yeah, the Lord took care of it. The Lord made sure that every animal stayed on their side of the boat. Herbivores, you go over here. Herbivores, omnivores, you go on this side. And of course, you got this 600-year-old dude whose name is Moses, tending to everything, shoveling out a metric ton of shit. Well, of course, with 40 days travel because of having 2 of every animal in the world on this boat. There's this thing called predation. Those with teeth and eat meat will do such thing. Had that really happened, there would have been carnage. That boat would have been a ghost ship. There was a movie called Ghost Ship, by the way, that came out in the late 98, maybe the early 2000s. Check it out. But nonetheless, the whole concept of that, again, is just ridiculous. An idiotic concept of religion. But again, you have people who will read this and take it as fact. No, Moses did not exist. Let's go ahead and put that out there. No, did not exist. Again, somebody's going to be walking down a riverbed, posting, hey, you know what? Let's get this party started. And the sea parts, come on now. Again, people who read this book and take it as solid fact will say that, yes, that did happen. But enough of that. You get where I'm going with it. Faith is the belief in the non-existent. So I think the best way to start wrapping it up here, because we're over an hour, which is not too bad. Didn't expect to go this long, but you know what? We're already into it. So let's do what I do. We'll have a bit of a bonus. For those of you who have not joined me, does anyone know how old the Earth is? So I'm just going to throw this out here. There was somebody who calculated how old the Earth was, and that calculation went into the Bible as we know it. Let's do this for a second. Since we're already there, I'm going to show some folks who may or may not already know this. I'm going to phrase this in a question form. I want to read it out loud. it says. Boom. All right, so this is what we want to do. Let me get rid of what we've already put out here. So keep it fresh. All right, so 6,000 years. Now we're looking at how old the Earth is as of right now. I think it would be more like 6,200. But yeah, you're in the right zone. Nonetheless, yes, you're in the right zone. Based upon, well, she already knows the answer, so she's calculating. She knows that the Earth, by this calculation, the Earth is only 6,200, 6,300 something years old, but it's over 6,000 years old per this calculation. Now, some of you, if you're watching, are wondering where did Alicia get this from? Well, I will go ahead and show you. So I did this as a question form. Did James Ussher determine the date of creation for the Earth as being 23 October 4004? Yes, the Irish bishop James Ussher determined the date of creation for the Earth in 4004 BC, with the first day of creation beginning on the evening of October 23rd, 4004 BCE, according to his work Annals Veteris Testamentum, the Annals of the Old Testament, published in 1650. Ussher based this specific date on his calculations from genealogies and chronologies in the Bible and ancient texts, coinciding with the autumnal equinox and a Sunday. Here it is, folks, right there. As I told you, I'm not going to tell you any lie. I'm not going to tell you anything that I cannot just. So think about this. Through the work of James Ussher, and also this information, it's probably put in, I think, the King James Version as well. So whereas you may have, remember, rewrites the Bible. Many different authors were responsible for the information that's contained in the Bible that we see right now. This book has not changed since the 16th or 17th century, or at least since the publication. The original publication based on the Gutenberg Bible principles. Keep this in mind now when you have a conversation with folks. When they ask you, well, so how old do you think the Earth is? Well, if you go by this calculation, to include taking in mind what Honey Wisdom just said, the Earth is approximately 6,000 plus years old, starting with 4004 being the date. So now, let's go with this. 4004 BC, that's when the Earth is supposed to create. Now recall that I did mention that there were hunter-gathering societies in Egypt living around the Nile around 8,000 BCE. You have what they call the African Stonehenge, the Naphtha Plate, which is listed as being 7,500 years old. You have Adam's calendar, which is still under debate for many folks. That's debated as being 75,000 years old, also found. There's still ongoing and active debate with it. But as I've said before, those who cannot disprove what facts are being presented, they will disavow any work that is being done. So folks are still out to lunch then, but it's still standing right now based on the studies that have been done by the scientists who are responsible for making this statement. The United States, making it for mine right now. But you just type in Adam's calendar or how old is Adam's calendar, and you will get information about it. But nonetheless, we just stay with the Naphtha Plate, which has been called the Stonehenge of Africa. 7,500 years old. So with all that being said, again, James Ussher was saying that the Earth was created in 4000 BC. The Naphtha Plate, the African Stonehenge, grew to be 7,500 years old, meaning that somebody had put it there. hunter-gatherer societies living around the Nile around 8,000 BCE and further. But let's not forget about the pyramids in Egypt. With all this information showing that there was existence, human life, we're even talking about, again, science, academics, culinary, going back 80,000 years or further back. All this that has gone on. Do you really think Adam was the first man? I'm just putting it out there. This is what blows people's mind. It's the question. If the earth was created in 4004 BC on the 23rd of October, but yet you had hunter-gatherer societies around 8,000 BCE living around the Nile. You've got African stones that's dated at 7,500 years old. How in the world can Adam have been the first man? You don't see that question getting kicked around. So I'm going to leave you guys with that. Go back and actually take a minute to think about this. How accurate is this source called the Bible? Sexism, racism, it's all in it. But depending upon the perspective that's presented, you'll never hear those things. Think of it being like business history. All right, well, folks, that's all I've got for the time being. So I appreciate it for anyone who actually stuck around, or for those of you who are in the clouds. Thanks, Lisa, for coming through, and also any of you guys who are watching this inside of the replay gang spaces. So I'm going to be doing some more shows like this right now. Just again, it's not Sunday school. This is not Vacation Bible School. This is not Sunday sermon. This is merely me bringing out facts, world history that can record and substantiate what I'm saying. It's not about being right. It's about being accurate. If you like it, let me know. Share if you do. And subscribe. This is what you're looking for. Appreciate your time, everybody, for this random rant. There will be more. John, here we are. Peace.